$15,000 is your wedding budget, and that's final. Diane's voice cut through the pleasant buzz of the bridal boutique, her declaration loud enough that other customers turned to stare at us. I was holding a veil that cost more than her proposed budget when I realized this wasn't a negotiation. It was an ultimatum delivered in front of witnesses to ensure I couldn't argue. My stepmother stood near the register, arms crossed, looking at me like she'd just done me an enormous favor instead of slashing my wedding budget to a fifth of what she'd given her own daughter. The dress I was considering cost $8,500, and Diane thought I should plan an entire wedding for less than twice that amount. Did my father and stepmother really think I needed their money, or that I'd even asked for it in the first place? Last year, Madison got $80,000, I said calmly, setting down the veil. I was there. I saw the budget spreadsheet. $80,000 for her wedding to Justin. Madison's situation was different, Dad said quickly, standing beside Diane in unified parental disapproval. She and Justin were just starting out. They needed help. You and Thomas are established. You can afford to have a modest wedding. Modest. The word they used when they meant cheap, lesser, not worth investing in. Thomas makes good money as an architect, Diane added, her voice taking on that patronizing tone I'd learned to hate over the 15 years she'd been married to my father. And you have your little event planning side business. Between you can supplement the $15,000 we're generously providing. My little event planning side business. Elegance Events, the luxury wedding and corporate event planning company I'd founded 8 years ago that currently employed 23 people and generated $4.2 million in annual revenue. The thing is, Dad said, pulling out his checkbook like this was already decided, we want you to learn fiscal responsibility. Madison's wedding was excessive. We've realized we didn't do her any favors by funding such extravagance. This is better for you in the long run. Better for me. $15,000 when they'd given Madison $80,000 just 12 months ago. I checked my phone. 2:47 p.m. I had a client meeting at 3:30. A tech CEO's daughter whose wedding budget was $350,000 and who was paying my company $5,500 just for planning and coordination services. You're making this about money, I said quietly, when it's really about fairness. Life isn't fair, Paige, Diane said sharply. The sooner you learn that, the better. We're giving you $15,000. That's more than many couples get from their parents. You should be grateful. Grateful. For a fraction of what they'd given my stepsister, delivered with a lecture about fiscal responsibility and life lessons. Madison appeared from the dressing room area, wearing a bridesmaid dress that cost $400. A dress I was expected to buy her for my wedding while being told I should be grateful for scraps from my father's checkbook. Oh, good. You told her about the budget, Madison said cheerfully. Honestly, Paige, you don't need a huge wedding anyway. Thomas is your second marriage. It's not like you're a young bride. Something small and tasteful makes more sense. My second marriage. I'd been married briefly at 24, a mistake that ended after 18 months. I was 32 now, marrying Thomas after 3 years together, and apparently that disqualified me from a real wedding budget. Small and tasteful, I repeated. Exactly. Maybe a backyard ceremony. Some simple catering. You're good at party planning? Just plan your own wedding. Think of it as a fun project. Plan my own wedding. Use my professional expertise to execute my own event for free while being given a budget that would not cover the floral arrangements at the weddings I planned for clients. When is this $15,000 available? I asked. Dad brightened, mistaking my question for acceptance. I can write you a check today. First installment of $5,000, then 2 more payments of $5,000 each as you hit milestones. That way you learn to budget properly. Milestones. They were going to make me report my spending like I was 16 asking for allowance. That won't be necessary, I said. Don't be proud, Diane said. $15,000 is a generous gift. Take it. I don't need it. Everyone needs help with wedding costs, Dad insisted. Don't let your ego... I don't need it because I don't want it. I picked up my phone and opened a specific folder. I appreciate the offer, but Thomas and I are funding our own wedding. On your event planning side business income? Diane's laugh was brittle. Paige, be realistic. Those party planning jobs don't pay much. You're not going to be able to afford the kind of wedding you're imagining. Party planning jobs? I'd just invoiced a client $67,000 for a corporate gala. You're right, I said calmly. I should be realistic. Let me show you what realistic looks like for my business. I pulled up my laptop from my bag and opened the Elegance Events dashboard, the real-time business management system that tracked every active client, every project, every dollar flowing through my company. Elegance Events, November 2024. Active projects. Current active clients. 18 projects in planning, 23 events. This month, 11 monthly revenue, $387,500. The bridal boutique felt very quiet suddenly. $387,000, Madison said slowly. Dollars? Monthly revenue for November, yes. It's actually a slower month. October was $441,000 because we had a destination wedding in Napa that included week-long events. I pulled up the client list. Active wedding clients. Morrison Patterson wedding, budget $425K. Jang Williams wedding, budget $350K. Rodriguez Thompson wedding, budget $280K. Sullivan Brooks wedding, budget $195K. Anderson Lee wedding, budget $165K. Chen Martinez wedding, budget $140K. 6 weddings currently in active planning, I explained. Average budget is just over $200,000. My company charges 15% of total budget for full-service planning and coordination. We also do corporate events, galas, product launches, and private celebrations. Dad was staring at the laptop screen like it was showing lottery numbers. You're planning weddings that cost $500,000? The Morrison wedding is actually trending toward $475,000 now. They added a second day of events. Our fee for that wedding alone is $71,250. Diane had gone very pale. That's your side business? That's Elegance Events. Not a side business, my primary business. I founded it 8 years ago with money from my divorce settlement. Started with small events, built a reputation for flawless execution and creative design, grew into luxury weddings and high-end corporate events. We're now one of the top event planning firms in the Pacific Northwest. I pulled up another screen. Elegance Events, Annual Financials 2024. Projected revenue, 4.2 MERS active employees, 23 office locations, Seattle HQ, Portland satellite client satisfaction rate, 98.7%. Repeat, referral rate, 87%. $4.2 million in revenue, I said. We employ 23 people full-time. I have an office in downtown Seattle with 6,000 square feet, design studios, meeting rooms, sample galleries. I own the business outright. Thomas and I are both successful professionals with substantial incomes. Madison was scrolling on her phone frantically. Your website, it says Seattle's premier luxury event planning firm. There are photos of massive weddings. That waterfront ceremony with the flower wall was yours? The Bellingham wedding last June, yes. That was a $320,000 event. The flower wall alone was $45,000. $45,000 for flowers? Diane's voice had gone shrill. For that specific installation, yes. It was a 20-foot by 30-foot living wall of orchids, roses, and peonies. The client was thrilled. Her father owns a tech company. Money wasn't an object. I pulled up photos from my portfolio. Sprawling estates transformed into fairy tale venues. Ballrooms draped in custom linens and crystal chandeliers. Tables set with china and flowers that cost more per guest than Diane's proposed budget for my entire wedding. This is what I do, I said. I create extraordinary events for clients who want the best. I coordinate with venues, caterers, florists, photographers, musicians, lighting designers, rental companies. I manage timelines, budgets, vendors, logistics. I've planned events for tech executives, professional athletes, prominent business families, and celebrities who hire us specifically because we deliver perfection. Dad found his voice. Why didn't you tell us your business was this successful? I did tell you, repeatedly. I told you I'd opened an office. You said, that's nice. I told you I'd hired staff. You said, hopefully it works out. I told you I was featured in Seattle Bride magazine. You didn't read the article. I showed you photos of events I'd planned. You said they looked expensive and changed the subject. We thought you were helping plan parties, Diane said weakly. Small events, birthdays, anniversaries. I started with those. 8 years ago. I grew the business systematically into luxury events. I have a business degree from UW. I have professional certifications in event planning. I've won awards from the International Live Events Association. I network with the top vendors in the industry. This isn't a hobby or side business. This is my career. Madison had stopped looking at her phone. Your wedding to Thomas. What's your actual budget? Thomas and I are planning to spend approximately $180,000. We want something beautiful but not ostentatious. A waterfront venue, about 150 guests, excellent food and wine, live band, professional photography and videography. Standard luxury wedding in Seattle. $180,000, Dad repeated. Which I can easily afford. My company will clear about $800,000 in profit this year after expenses and payroll. Thomas makes $240,000 as a senior architect. Combined, we have substantial income. We're paying for our own wedding because we can, and because we want it planned exactly our way. I closed my laptop. So, Dad, when you offered me $15,000 as if it were some generous gift that I should be grateful for, what you actually offered me was less than 10% of my wedding budget, less than my company charges and fees for a single moderately sized wedding. The silence in the bridal boutique was absolute. You gave Madison $80,000, I continued. You gave me $15,000 and a lecture about fiscal responsibility. The message is clear. My wedding isn't worth what hers was. Whether that's because it's my second marriage, or because you value her more, or because you genuinely didn't know my financial situation, the result is the same. You treated me like I needed charity when I'm actually probably the most financially successful person in this family. Paige, I didn't know, Dad said. We really didn't know. You didn't ask. In 8 years of running elegance events, you've never asked to see my office. You've never asked about my revenue or growth or client base. You've never asked to attend one of my events to see what I actually create. You just assumed event planning meant small-time party coordination. Diane looked at her husband. Richard, she's right. We assumed. So what happens now? Madison asked quietly. Are you going to take the money? No, I'm going to plan my wedding with my own money, using the professional expertise I've spent 8 years developing. I'll hire vendors I know personally, negotiate rates using my industry connections, and create something beautiful that Thomas and I will love. Can I see the plans? Dad asked. Your actual wedding plans? I pulled up a different folder on my phone. The mood boards, venue photos, vendor contracts for my own wedding. Paige and Thomas wedding date, June 14th, 2025. Venue, Woodmark Hotel, Lake Washington. Guest count, 150. Budget, $180,000. I showed them the details. The waterfront ceremony space, the ballroom reception, the menu from a Michelin-starred catering team, the floral designs I'd sketched with my preferred florist. This is stunning, Madison said softly. This is like the weddings on Instagram that I thought only celebrities could afford. These are the weddings I plan for clients regularly. I know exactly how to create them because it's literally my job. Dad was looking at the budget breakdown. You're spending $30,000 on flowers? Ceremony arch, reception centerpieces, bouquets, boutonnieres, installation pieces? Yes. My florist is one of the best in Seattle. The arrangements will be breathtaking. And $25,000 for photography? Photographer and videographer, both award-winning. Full-day coverage, second shooters, all edited images and a highlight film. It's standard for high-end weddings. He shook his head slowly. We really didn't understand. No, you didn't. Diane cleared her throat. Paige, I owe you an apology. A significant one. I thought we were teaching you a lesson, but we were just being condescending. You were being unfair, I corrected. Whether or not I could afford a big wedding, treating me differently than you treated Madison sent a clear message about my value in this family. That wasn't our intention. But it was the result. My phone buzzed. A text from my assistant. Morrison wedding tasting confirmed for Monday. Also, new inquiry for $400K destination wedding in Italy. Want me to send the intake form? $400,000. For a destination wedding I'd coordinate in Tuscany. I need to go, I said, gathering my things. I have a client meeting in 40 minutes. A tech CEO whose daughter is getting married. My fee for planning her wedding is $52,500. Dad looked stricken. Paige, can we start over? Can I take you and Thomas to dinner, hear about your business, see your office? Maybe, eventually. After I process being offered $15,000 like it was a fortune while you gave my stepsister $80,000 without conditions or lectures. That's fair. And after you acknowledge that you valued her wedding more than mine because of judgments about second marriages and age and whatever other reasons you've convinced yourselves made sense. His face flushed, but he nodded. You're right. We were wrong. I left the bridal boutique, walking past displays of dresses I could easily afford, past binders of invitation samples from designers I worked with regularly, past everything my stepmother thought was beyond my reach. My phone rang. Thomas, calling from his architecture firm. How'd the dress shopping go? He asked. Diane tried to give me a $15,000 wedding budget. What? They gave Madison $80,000 last year. They offered me $15,000 and told me to be grateful. That's... He stopped, clearly trying to find words that weren't expletives. I showed them the Elegance Events dashboard. I think they're still processing. Good. They should know who they're dealing with. I'm not taking their money. Obviously, we don't need it. I just wanted them to understand that $15,000 isn't generous when you gave my stepsister more than 5 times that amount. They understand now, Thomas said. Or they're starting to. I drove to my office in downtown Seattle. 6,000 square feet of design studios, sample galleries, and meeting spaces. My 23 employees were coordinating events, meeting with vendors, designing tablescapes, reviewing timelines. This was my empire. Built from nothing. From a small investment after a failed marriage to a multi-million-dollar company that created magic for clients who understood the value of excellence. 2 weeks later, Dad called. Can I see your office? Really see it? Sure. Tuesday at 2 p.m.? He arrived exactly on time, parking his car on the street and staring up at the building with obvious surprise. I met him in the lobby. Paige, this is a real office. What did you think? That I worked from a coffee shop? I don't know what I thought. I gave him the tour, the design studios where my team created event concepts, the sample room filled with linens, and china, and glassware, the meeting rooms where we consulted with clients, the wall of awards and press features. This is extraordinary, he said quietly. You built this. I built this. From scratch. With intelligence, hard work, and strategic business decisions. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. I'm sorry you had to be shown my bank account before you respected my work. He accepted that without argument. 3 months later, I married Thomas at the Woodmark Hotel in a wedding that cost $187,000 and was absolutely perfect. Waterfront ceremony at sunset, reception under market lights and floral chandeliers, food that people still talk about, a band that kept everyone dancing until midnight. Dad and Diane attended. They didn't contribute financially, but Dad gave a toast that mentioned being proud of both his daughters and their different paths to success. Madison caught the bouquet and hugged me, whispering, Your wedding is what I wished mine had been. And as I danced with Thomas under lights I'd designed, surrounded by flowers I'd selected, at a venue I'd transformed through professional expertise, I thought about Diane's declaration in the bridal boutique. 15,000 is more than enough for you. She'd been wrong. About the money. About my capability. About everything. My company had billed $437,000 in the month I got married. I'd proven I didn't need their budget. I just needed them to understand I'd never needed it at all.